Coming up, we discuss the NAB Show, the NBN, and Disney. Is that an acronym? I don't know, we'll find out.
A Girl and a Gun, Episode 3, recorded 11th of April 2013. NAB and NBN spot the TLA.
All you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. Come along and join the party while we're still at the sun.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Girl and a Gun, the show for filmmakers and content creators. I'm Phil Moore, and as always I'm joined by John Maisels.
Hello Phil,
Hi,
hello
John.
Everybody.
And what have you been up to this week?
Well, it's NAB week.
It is
now,
indeed.
I would really love to be in Las Vegas with everybody, but I'm not. I'm here doing this program, but roughly 100,000 of media technologists, filmmakers, people who love the stuff that we use in this industry, make the annual pilgrimage to Las Vegas for NAB. And they're all there having a wonderful time. And indeed, I have a shout out to a mate of mine, Stephen, who, when I said, you're going there, you've got to go to the ham radio reception, he went, what's that? I said, well, you go there, you get a ticket at the door. If you're lucky, you win a door prize. And he just texted me before to say he won a Telos 2-line hybrid. It's like second prize for the whole thing.
What's the Telos 2-line hybrid?
It's a telephone interface.
Oh, right.
Look, I know it's really geeky. Later.
That's what NAB is. NAB is the geek show for high-end National Association of Broadcasters.
National Association of Broadcasters.
What it stands for. And this is where a lot of announcements for new gear that is of interest to our industry are announced. And we're going to look at a lot of these right now in our breaking news. Got my glasses on quickly that time, you know.
Which is just as well.
Yeah.
It's good television.
Look, we have software, we have cameras, we have all sorts of things. We're going to start with software releases from NAB. Adobe. They have announced the new Adobe Creative Suite, an upgrade for all of their software. After Effects and Premiere Pro in particular is what I'm interested in, for example. There's a new rotoscoping engine. There is Maxon's Cinema 4D, which is a 3D animation tool. A light version of that is built into After Effects, comes with it. We actually have, let's let Adobe tell us all about it. From the Adobe website, they now have several videos on their site that briefly explain some of the highlighted new features for each of these programs. And let's have a look at the one for Premiere Pro and After Effects in a row. Let's have those two.
Premiere Pro has seen incredible growth in the industry in recent years, with tens of thousands choosing it as their primary non-linear editor. Here at Adobe, we pride ourselves on engaging with the editing community. Premiere Pro now offers powerful new ways to solve editors' pain points, be it dealing with the repurposing of media with closed captions or workflows requiring the use of mezzanine codecs. The timeline's been redesigned so that critical information is presented to the editor at a glance. Duplicate frame indicators ensure media is never accidentally reused, and new healable through edit indicators make simple edit tasks easier than ever. Numerous editing enhancements make fast, intuitive editing a breeze, including much requested paste attributes functionality, and new keyboard shortcuts for simple, extremely common tasks like being able to nudge clips up and down. Now, editors can work with a rich palette of high-quality, pre-built looks from Adobe's very own SpeedGrade using the built-in Looks browser. And the intuitive new Clip Mixer is perfect for editors who are switching from other applications. All in all, this version of Premiere Pro offers hundreds of incredible editing features to make the experience of editing more fluid and creative than ever before. And it offers powerful new ways to solve some of the most common challenges facing editors today.
One of the things that's awesome about working on the After Effects team here at Adobe is we get to hear loud and clear how users bend, break, and take our technology in different directions. And the cool thing is that we get to then put that back into the product. And that's exactly what we did with this version of After Effects. As an example, we did a complete upgrade to the Warp Stabilizer and now call it the Warp Stabilizer VFX. Now instead of just stabilization, you can focus on the creative control of the shot. You can decide whether to reverse stabilize or have the shaky footage where you intended the camera to work that way, or focus on specific elements within the scene and allow the stabilization process to work with effects and so on. We also took rotoscoping in a completely different direction. We've delivered a technology that has never been seen before, that abandons the traditional techniques and allows you to pull out fine detail imagery from complex backgrounds that may be impossible or even impractical to rotoscope in the past. To top it off, we worked with Maxon, one of the leading vendors in 3D, the creators of Cinema 4D, to come up with an integration between After Effects and Cinema 4D that has never been seen before. No longer are you required to re-render or iteratively render between the two applications, and you can work directly with 3D geometry inside your composition. These are just a few of the killer features of After Effects.
Look, I'm actually really excited by this release. They've taken some of the stuff that's in SpeedGrade, their grading software, built that into Premiere Pro. The new rotoscoping in After Effects looks phenomenal. Cinema 4D built in After Effects, awesome. I'm really excited about this upgrade, more than I have for the last couple of versions.
What is it that you don't like about this product, Phil? It sounds like you're pretty hot on it.
I do like the Adobe Suite, and even the pricing is starting to come down if you get the cloud thing. Although we've had, as we've reported in the past, problems with their pricing issues in Australia.
Yeah, but everybody has problems with pricing in Australia compared to overseas.
Yeah. I haven't seen a reference within Adobe Premiere any improvements in their sound engine. I really want them to make some really simple improvements to the sound design within the program, like adding mute and record buttons, frankly, on the timeline. Little things like this. So what they've added is great, but I'm hoping there's other little tweaks I've been wanting for ages and they haven't quite done yet. But I use both of those programs quite a lot. All of I haven't seen what's new in Audition and the others in the line yet, but I'm looking forward to it very much. SpeedGrade is a grading program they bought just before they released CS6, and it hasn't been upgraded much at all for the sake of the suite. This time it looks like they're integrating it much more into Premiere, which I really hope they do, and they've done by the look of it, or partly done. Great stuff from Adobe coming, I think, so everyone seems to be excited by that. Also on the software, Avid have announced the new version of Media Composer version 7, which is the big rival for Adobe, as we discussed in our first episode. They haven't given a lot of details. The main thing they're talking about as the big thing for this is that those working with AMA media architecture, you don't have to deal with the technicalities of it so much. It treats it more like Avid's native file format and infrastructure. I don't use Avid a lot, so I'm not quite sure what that's about, but Avid people, I'm sure you understand.
People who use that a lot will know what that actually means.
Yeah, the big news actually from them, along with that, for me, is Pro Tools has got a major overhaul with Pro Tools 11. A quote here, it's built on a new, much faster audio engine with a 64-bit architecture, thank God at last. The performance gains are so great. Avid said that final mixes can be delivered up to 150 times real time, so that you don't have to mix down in real time, for God's sake. It's pricing in Australia at just under $700, upgrades for $300. Pro Tools has needed an upgrade like this for ages. I have not seen the software yet. I'm hoping it's as good as I say, but they've needed an architectural overhaul for a long time.
And at those prices, how do you rank it as value
This is the first major change they've had since 2002, so it's been over 10 years.
Yeah.
Well overdue. Anyway, that's all good news for Avid and Pro Tools users. On to cameras.
And you're going to talk about Blackmagic Design, aren't you?
I am. Blackmagic, an Australian company who've taken the cinematography world by storm with their cinema camera, which only came out, they've been having some technical issues with it, and we've talked about that a little bit. It only really happened last year. Well, at NAB, they've announced 2 new cameras. There's lots of things they've announced, but 2 new cameras in particular. The one we're looking at there now is the Pocket Cinema Camera, a true Super 16, equivalent to Super 16 film, digital film camera. And look how small it is. I mean, it's like a Instamatic camera. This is going to take on the DSLRs, like the Canon 5Ds and 7Ds of this world, I reckon. 1080p, obviously, HD, 422 quality, ProRes compressed, which is good. It's compressed, but for a camera like this, you wouldn't expect to be getting full RAW. But look, this is comparable to their cinema camera that they had originally. So what have they done with that? Let's go to the next page. They've upgraded that to a 4K version. So the new Blackmagic production camera, 4K. This looks very similar to the original cinema camera that they had. That's the big news for this NAB show, 4K, or Ultra HD. All the cameras are going 4K.
Now look, for people who aren't particularly familiar with what the terms actually mean and why this is spectacularly exciting, firstly, Blackmagic is an Australian company. They are based in Melbourne, and they have just over the years continued to produce more and more surprising products. And probably the most surprising thing about Blackmagic is the affordability, because the prices are just like stupidly cheap compared to what we did. Infrastructure that might have cost you $500,000 20 years ago would cost you in today's dollars, $50,000 to $100,000. And you go like, how can they do it? Well, the answer is they've made real advances in manufacturing and real advances in pricing and real advances in
and
design.
cameras is new for them. They're well known for conversion and compression cards and adapters and things
switches
like
and so on.
switches and stuff.
Yeah.
And the ATEM vision switcher, which we do multicam with, like we do here.
Yeah. And then they suddenly come out with a camera, and you go, where did that come from? And then they come out with an even better camera, and you go, well, where did that come from?
Well, the original Blackmagic cinema camera was, it had a 2/3 sensor. It was kind of, they wanted to keep the price down, as you say. They wanted to keep it at about $3,000. That's the body without the lens, though. That's just the body of the camera. You still have to add your own lens. And for what it was great value, but there were some compromises made. This new one, this is a full Super 35mm chip.
Yeah, this is pretty amazing stuff.
At 4K. 422, and it records lossless compressed cinema DNG RAW and ProRes 422 high quality. So it's recording at ProRes is the codec that Apple invented for Final Cut Pro, and is now being used in some cameras.
It's worth going to Blackmagic's site and having a look at the press releases. So if you go to blackmagicdesign.com and you click where it says press, it shows all the press releases that they came out with at NAB. There is a swag of them. There's more than one screen. And a lot of what they've done is announce products for either 4K, in other words, what is now being called ultra high definition. We'll come back to that in a second. Yeah. And 6 gig, and the 6G, 6 gig, this is like 6 gigabit, which is fast enough transmission on a bit of coax or a bit of fibre to be able to send the ultra high def.
Well, we've got more news
4K
on that coming
signal.
up. Yes, exactly.
And they have rolled out a complete set of infrastructure to deal with this. So it's pretty much one-stop shopping. It's rather amazing.
Well, Red were the ones that actually pioneered a lot of this Ultra HD 4K stuff when they had the Red 1. But I'll get to that in a moment. We have another video here just on the Blackmagic. They've got a whole swag of new products. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there's a video here done by Studio Daily with Brian Fraser. Their guy on the ground at NAB has been talking to a lot of these people, and he talked to the people at Blackmagic about their new releases.
James Mathers for the Digital Cinema Society and Studio Daily at NAB 2013. I'm here at the Blackmagic booth, and Dan May is going to tell us what's new with the Blackmagic. Dan, can you confirm the rumors? 4K for the same price as the 2.5? What's going on?
Well, it's not the same price of the two, but it is $4,000. So $3,995 for a 4K cinema camera, which we're obviously really excited about. We felt like this year there was a couple of goals that we really wanted to do. We really wanted to help introduce an Ultra HD workflow. We wanted to kind of expand on our cinema camera range, and of course we wanted to continue the development of Resolve. So we've launched some 4K products in the past, and they were using HDMI with the 1.4, which is great for using Ultra HD, but this year's big development is 6 gig SDI technology, which allows for Ultra HD over a single cable that works with HD and SD equipment. So we've launched new production equipment with our A10 production switcher 4K. We've got other 4K products that are out there for all that, but what we're really missing beyond being all that heart of the live production was that actual 4K camera that could go out and shoot 4K, as well as being able to send out the SDI to our production switcher for being able to do a 4K production. So this is what's kind of led to this new Blackmagic production camera 4K. Obviously, we wanted to make it $4,000. It uses the same chassis that we see. Most of these chassis here are all the same as our current EF-based 2.5K. So we can use all the same accessories that we were using before. It's a super 35 millimeter based sensor, so it's a big sensor.
Wow, got away from the micro 2/3.
So we wanted to have something that had that big sensor so that we could have that other, we wanted to have all of our products kind of be the right fit for purpose. And this gives you that ability to have that big sensor with that nice EF lens on there. So all of the folks that were using DSLRs and having that aspiration to do more cinema-like quality. Now it is a 12 stop base camera versus the 13 stop that we see on our 2.5K cinema camera. Also, because it is 4K, and it's still recording to the same SSDs, but it's only doing ProRes at that 4K, or it's a lightly compressed Cinema DNG RAW. So if you're really looking for a great 2.5K image to be able to do a lot of great 13 stops and the fully uncompressed RAW, still a great solution. But if you want that 4K wide, being able to get that on a slightly compressed on the SSD, there's a great solution for you as well. But in addition to all of that, we thought, man, wouldn't it be great if we could take a lot of this great functionality we have on these cinema cameras, but fit it in our pocket? And that's why we've got now our pocket cinema camera, which is great because for $1,000, you basically have an HD resolution cinema camera. Still has the 13 stops of dynamic range. It's going ahead and using an active micro 4/3 lens, and it's recording to really simple, just SD cards. So pull them out, put them in your laptop, start editing, removable Nikon battery. Really just a great product that you can just take on the road, get the shots you need quickly without having the big production of a full-blown cinema camera experience. So we really wanted to expand on all of that cinema camera range that we have.
So you've got Resolve, you've got the cameras, digital cinema cameras.
So as you can see, lots of new stuff coming from Blackmagic, and they're very excited about it. And frankly, this new cinema camera is what the first one really should have been. This is the one I would want to get. And a lot of people said, look, that first generation looks pretty good, but I'll wait until and this is the one, I think. Assuming they don't have the problems they had with the first one.
It's also interesting that everybody is coming out with products they now call ultra high definition at 4K resolution, because up until about, well, maybe a year ago, the ultra high definition name had been reserved for the system that NHK have been rolling out, and that's 8K resolution.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
and it really is very, very high resolution. Well, it seems that the consumer electronics market, not actually having a product for 8K yet, but having a product for 4K, has now taken the ground and said, right, well, we're going to call 4K ultra high definition.
Yes.
And so what you will see over the next probably 10 years is a whole lot of stuff coming out at 4K until our ability to deliver 8K cost effectively comes up.
It'll be
and
ultra,
then
ultra.
suddenly, it'll be ultra high definition at 8K.
Mega ultra or something.
Yeah, watch this space. I mean, would you avoid buying a product now on that basis? No, I'd be out there buying the product right now.
The thing was that 4K, we understand it, what 4K means, us professional filmmaking types, which is 4 times the resolution of HD basically. But to the average consumer, as you say, it doesn't mean anything. What's 4K? It's actually 4,000
Well, it's
pixels
high.
across.
It's better. It's like having a bigger fridge.
But
You
they
can
know
go-
what
you go and
HD
get-
is.
Yeah.
So you say Ultra HD, this is the new thing. And Sony has released a new TV, in fact, at NAB, which isn't in our lineup, but they've released at about $6,000 or $7,000. It's now becoming kind of affordable to buy a 4K television for your living room. There's not much content for it yet, and they give you a few movies to go with it.
Yeah, well, that's
At
nice.
4K res. But everything's being shot in at least 4K these days. Starting with the Reds, they began this revolution, frankly. And Red are at NAB as well. They started with the Red 1 camera, then the Red Scarlet and the Red Epic, which The Hobbit and many other films have been shot with since recently. Well, Red they've released a new sensor for all of these cameras, which is 6K. So you can take your Red, Scarlet and Epic camera, take it into Red, and they will do the upgrade on your camera to a 6K sensor, which is an expensive upgrade. It's like $9,500, give or take, because it's basically a whole new camera you're getting for that. And that's going to be the new standard from Red. And in fact, we've got there's a photo series here. At NAB, they've actually set up a mini production line to show you how they do the process of upgrading the cameras, from breaking them down and putting the sensor in and testing it, and if it doesn't work, there's a guy at the end that says, "Nope, take it back, do it again, chuck that sensor out." In fact, there's a video here again from our friends at Studio Daily, where he talks with the fellow here from Red about the sensor and about all of that, and we'll show a little bit of that video now.
James Mathers for Studio Daily and the Digital Cinema Society at NAB 2013. In a tradition that we've been doing for many years now, we're going to start the interviews with Ted Schilowitz, my old friend from Red. Ted, can you tell us, you got a lot of stuff going on?
Now, probably the biggest thing that we're pushing the envelope is we're moving from our 5K sensor, which of course is the industry-leading sensor, to beating ourselves with the 6K Dragon sensor, which we are now building into cameras right here on the show floor, which is pretty unusual and pretty amazing. We'll show you what it looks like in a minute.
I should have brought mine for an upgrade.
You should have, because you are a super uber early adopter. But as soon as you're back from LA, we'll take care of you. So we are imminent in getting all that done. Sensors are working, all the ASICs are working, the upgrade path is working, we're doing it, it's being accomplished. We still have some final tweaks on the firmware and some of the color calibration and things like that, but the hard part of the physical hardware is done. Now, the even slightly harder part of making the pictures look perfect for first deliverables is happening, and that's part of the process.
Well, you know, one of my first questions is, did the sensor size get any bigger? Do I need to get new lenses?
Only slightly larger. So there is a slight size, and this will be all up on the user forum, all the technical specs and stuff. The pixel pitch actually gets a little smaller. It's so interesting because the sensor is so much more advanced than even the 5K sensor, which, as you know, because you shoot it all the time, is incredibly advanced. But we were able to pack more picture information. It's actually, just to give you some sort of specs to chew on, the Dragon sensor, the 6K sensor, is 10 times the resolution of HD. It is over 2 times the resolution of the 4K, of the original 4K Red sensor. And it's, I think, over 40% more resolution than the 5K sensor. It's literally 6,000 lines by 3,000 lines, give or take. You can see the actual specs online. It's a shocking jump. So you're talking about eclipsing 35 millimeter. We've now left that in the dust. We are talking about large format acquisition now at the kind of resolution that this 6K sensor will do. In addition, and probably in many ways more critical, even more latitude, a wider dynamic range, more top end, cleaner pictures, so we can take our red code and compress it down even more, which increases the efficiency of production and post-production, which of course brings me to this little guy. And you know, we got, like I said, there's lots of stuff to talk about. What's important to you and all these other customers is what's going on in this room. So this is a miniature version of our line in our factory in Orange County. The first thing to note is that we make our cameras in the United States of America, as you can see by there's a couple stickers there. And that's a big deal, right? So what we did to demonstrate the logic of how we work as a company is we said, what if we actually bring our upgrade line in miniature form to NAB? Wouldn't that be of interest, right? So it's obviously getting a lot of interest, as you can see. And we basically have every step of the equation. Cameras come in here to be disassembled from the 5K sensor. The 6K sensor goes on in that isolation chamber in there with the low pass filter. Then the front half and the back half of the camera, where all the electronics are, get assembled together and tested, calibrated. They move into an environmental testing chamber, which we can walk down here and I can show you if you want to see that. So these are all the steps. You can see there, where right now it's running at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That will cycle, that big white box there, that will cycle from super, super hot to sub-freezing and back again, basically putting it through the rigorous logic of production in a couple of minutes. It goes through a number of test and burn-in. That's what you're seeing there. In the back, you can't even see it, is the back focus and calibration. There's sensor checking, and then it moves through all these final steps here. This is actually the laser etching, where actually the cameras will get laser etched with their new Dragon markings and whatnot. And then at the last step of the equation, this gentleman does a final QC check, and he reports to no one, meaning he doesn't actually have a boss. He kind of does, but because we all have a boss. But it's his job. If there's anything wrong at any step of the equation, he pulls the key and says, no good, back to the beginning. And it's pretty precise, so it doesn't happen often, but he has that ultimate power, and that's really important to the logic of making sure these cameras are as reliable as you know they are, because you shoot with them every day. So you're kind of seeing this in action, and there's a whole bunch of steps I didn't cover, but that's the basic highlights in short order. So we're literally building Dragon cameras right here at NAB.
So as you can see, Red's got a lot going on as well, and they're very excited. I'm very excited about that. 6K now is going to be the new standard for shooting on.
Put that in perspective. 4K is roughly what you get in a cinema. That's what that would be the conversion for 35mm.
For the new digital projection,
exactly,
yeah.
And it's the standard for digital projection. Well, if you shoot in 4K and you go through post in 4K, then you're not actually going to be able to deliver quite 4K when it gets to the other end. You have to be working in a higher resolution than your eventual deliverable.
Because then we're going to be shooting in 8K very soon as well. And there are cameras that do 8K already, but they're not widely used. And red, as he explained there, they've also got the red ray, which is their solution for consumers. Or ultimately, it'll be for consumers. It's not yet, which is kind of an upgrade from Blu-ray. That's how the 4K movies are being played. How do you watch them? They've got a solution for that. We are also camera news, still on cameras. There's a new Phantom, the Phantom Flex 4K camera, 4K again, but this one, the special thing about this is it will capture high res up to 1,000 frames per second.
Now, what do you regard as high res in this particular
at 4K.
case?
So they've got 4,096 by 2160.
So we're talking about 4K resolution at 1,000 frames a second. Which is just extraordinary.
Yeah, the highest res the camera will do, it'll do 900 frames a second at 4096 by 2304. That's full 4K. And at slightly lower resolution, 4096 by 2160, slightly less vertical resolution, that's 1,000 frames. Take it down further to, you can get 2,000 frames at HD resolution or 3,000 at 720p.
So it's really good for either sports or like really good seamless slow-mos for sports.
Ultra slow-mo.
Does it say what it records on?
Super 35mm sensor with standard PL lens mounts. I'm trying to see what the media is.
But it's not so long since, in order to be able to record at that rate, it's got to go
to flash memory, like SSD type.
Well, even that wasn't fast enough, and you're talking about going to a vast array of hard drives in order to be able to get the aggregate data throughput just to record that.
Yeah.
So you'd have the camera be that big, and then you'd have discs that would be like the size of a fridge.
It transfers up to 1 gigapixel per second, and up to 2 terabyte version can hit up to 2 gigapixels per second. Okay.
It's
2 gigapixels a second.
2 gigapixels a second.
They don't say specifically how, I can't find it, but I'm assuming it's a new form of solid state drive, flash memory type. It's got to be to deal with that kind of frame rate. Expect to see some really brilliant ultra slow-mo stuff coming out of that. Those sort of cameras at super high resolution. Arri's at NAB as well. Arri released
the Alexa?
Alexa a couple of years ago, which everyone was salivating over. Even though technically the Alexa is not as high spec as some of these other cameras, it's a really well-built camera. And a lot of cinematography, it's rugged, it's great, the images do look good.
And that's really one of the hallmarks of Arri. It's stuff that you can drop down a flight of stairs and it will still work. And of course that's what you do. You drop it down a flight of stairs because that happens.
Because that happens. Well, Arri are here, but they have not released a 4K camera. In fact, they're saying don't believe the 4K hype. Their argument here, and I won't read the whole thing, but is resolution in terms of pixel count, that's one thing, but there's a lot more that makes a good image than just the size of the sensor, just how many pixels you are, and they're right about that. There's more than just resolution out here. It's got to have to do with the quality of the sensors and how you record it and the compression, if there's any compression applied to it. All of that stuff does count. So Arri are there, but they're spruiking. They have got some new models. They've got an Alexa XT, XTM, XT Plus, XT Studio cameras. And there was also even talk about them doing an Alexa Mini, and they've scuttled those rumours. They're not doing a mini version of the Alexa. The Alexa's new 4x3 sensor, which is better suited for 35mm style anamorphic photography than the 16:9 sensor configurations they claim. Anyway, if you're into Arri, have a look at that. I won't go through all the numbers here again, but they've got a new range of cameras going as well. And they're trying to avoid all the hype of 4K that's happening at NAB, which this is the 4K show. That's cameras. That's enough for cameras for the moment. Onto something that's a bit more camera mount related. There's a cool little video here for a stabilizer rig here, and you can play the video while I talk over this one. It's the movie camera. Just look at it. This is kind of like a free-flowing Steadicam. You don't have to attach this to your body. Look at how it's moving there. No matter how much he tries to jiggle it.
That rocking is really amazing, and the camera is hardly moving.
Yeah, and so You imagine running down the street with this. You don't have to have the whole Steadicam rig attached to your body or anything. You just hold it, and you're getting these beautiful, free, smooth shots.
It looks a lot like there was nothing attached to him there at all. It was purely what he was holding in his hand.
This is from a company called Free Fly Systems, and they're, as I say here, they're getting a lot of chatter at the advanced NAB. Look, that looks really awesome. It doesn't say here what the price is or anything else. I would love to know how much it is, but if that's, I don't know, a few $100 to $1,000, it'll still be worth getting.
If that's a few $100 to $1,000, I'll eat my shoes.
Look, it's just the camera on that was a DSLR by the look of it. It may take larger cameras, not too large, obviously.
Yeah.
But that was, you could probably get one of the Blackmagics on there.
What an impressive piece of kit.
Yeah.
And it just, camera doesn't go anywhere.
You see that, you want it immediately.
Oh, we're salivating here in the studio.
Now, with all of this 4K data, with all of these new cameras, one of the big questions becomes workflow. You know, how do you get this amount of data into the computers? How do we transfer the data? How do we do? Well, there is a new version of USB that's been announced. It's been updated to have a 10 gigabit per second data throughput for USB 3. So that's a specification. It hasn't happened yet. But already, to be honest, that's been superseded by Intel because they've announced a 20 gigabit version of Thunderbolt.
And the raw speed is actually quite important there. You might say, like, why do you need something that's that fast? One is, if you're doing very high-speed transfers, as you might do off one of those slow-mo cameras, you know, 2,000 pictures frames a second. But also if you're doing live production. So we're now talking about where a single picture is going to be travelling at 6 gigabits a second. That's the 6 gig infrastructure. Well, okay, that's one. If you're going to mix 2 or 3 of those together, you've only got to have 3 of those things at once. You know, like three images in a single shot isn't terribly uncommon. That's 18 gigabits when you add them all up as uncompressed. So these very high data rates are going to be extremely important to be able to deal with uncompressed data flows as the resolution keeps increasing.
And this is just within, and we're going to talk about the larger data bandwidth problem in a minute, in Australia in particular. But Intel invented the Thunderbolt interface, which is on most new Macs these days, and there's been rumours floating around about a new Mac desktop, but there's nothing solid, so I don't even want to talk about it yet, because when there's something to talk about, we'll talk about it.
And we never do that on this show.
It's Mac rumours, they go on forever until something's official. But they have said professionals keep an eye on this space kind of thing, so we'll see. So yeah, a new Thunderbolt that will help pave the way for that 4K workflow. You need that kind of throughput when we're talking about this kind of data. Anyway, that's NAB. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff we haven't covered here from NAB, a lot of lesser things. I just sort of picked out the top ones that impressed me the most, frankly.
I don't know how many exhibitors there are at NAB, but it's probably in the order of 1,500 or 2,000. And it's a big enough show that if you start at one end on the first day and you just spend 3 seconds at every stand, you could just about get through all of them by the end of the 4th day.
Yeah, these shows are massive, these kinds of shows, yeah. We have our own version coming up soon, which is
the SMPTE show.
Yeah, coming up in June.
Which actually won't be quite as big as NAB,
No.
but given the number of people come through, it's actually about weight for age. It's, it's roughly about the same number of people for the person per floor space, or some other crap metric that I could invent. But
in fact, we'll talk more about the Australian SMPTE show, which is due in June.
It
is that right?
July.
June,
week of
July. We'll talk about that when it comes up, and we'll try to do a special where we're roaming around the floor and we'll have a look at the things there. We'll actually go out and do it.
Excellent.
But on to other news. Disney, who bought Lucasfilm, which includes all the Star Wars franchise, ILM, it also included LucasArts, their games company, and they've shut them down. They've shut down LucasArts.
Very sad, I guess.
It is for those who, like myself, Sam and Max, The Secret of Monkey Island, Afterlife. Monkey Island in particular, I played when that first came out. That's a classic game of its kind in those days. And they've also done Star Wars video games. So LucasArts they've kind of been closed down. They've kind of been absorbed into Disney, I suppose, because Disney do their own games after all. Unfortunate, but at least they're keeping the Star Wars and ILM and the rest of the Lucasfilm franchise happening so far. That's an unfortunate development, but I guess that's one of the sacrifices they had to make in terms of buying Lucasfilm. On Disney still, this is an interesting little story. There's an artist, Katie Woodger, and she's claiming on her Tumblr that Disney are reproducing a version of Alice in Wonderland that she made, a painting of Alice that she made, and they're reproducing it on their merchandise without her permission. So Disney have, of course, made a couple of versions of Alice in Wonderland as a film now, but they don't own the rights outright to no one can do a version of Alice. So you have a look at the picture. Let's bring that up again, that website.
It is, of course, an outrageous claim. But have you seen it? Do you know how
yes,
serious
so
it is?
look up there. We've got the one on the left is the picture that Katie did, and the one in the middle is a bag, a cosmetic bag that Disney are selling.
Well, I don't know about you, Phil, but I'd look at those two and I'd go, you know, they're the same.
They're the same. And the one on the right is not identical, but it's clearly inspired by the one that Katie did on the left back in 2010.
Well, that's the one on the right. I think that's going to be lawyers at 200 paces and court cases because it's different enough that people could say, oh, yeah, of course it looks the same. But, you know, like let's draw a stick figure, two stick figures that look the same.
Right.
The one on the left and the one in the middle.
That one in the middle, that
Yeah.
is clearly the same picture.
Oh, dear.
And this is really ironic because you think how uppity Disney gets about anyone breaching their copyrights, especially Mickey Mouse and all the rest of it, you know. They're one of the most notorious companies for protecting their copyrights, which they have a right to do.
Absolutely.
Sure. But if they're going to be like that, then, you know, don't be stealing other people's copyright images.
This is certainly one of these things that happens a lot. People running companies that are very, very focused on making sure their rights are protected. But a little bit down the line, people forget that they're using other people's material. And so it's not uncommon for even large corporations to be busted for instance, unlicensed software. No names. Not Disney.
Yes, a lot of this happens, unfortunately, and some of it's accidental, admittedly. Who knows? This may be an accidental. Maybe
but some of it's just people think, I'd get away with this.
It's Alice in Wonderland. We own that, don't we? We
Yeah,
can use it,
yeah.
you know.
And you might think you get away with it. You don't get away with it.
No.
It's just not worth playing with the rights to other people's material.
Anyway, I believe she does have a case to answer there, and we've now highlighted the fact that Disney, watch yourselves.
Yeah.
Australia news. Did you watch the Logies this week?
No, I didn't.
Nor did I must admit.
So that's 100% of everybody in the studio didn't bother watching the logos.
I completely forgot they were on. I don't know. To be honest, the Logies don't interest me anymore. But this is important for our industry, obviously.
You realise nobody in the industry is going to talk to us anymore.
I'm not involved in television drama at the moment. I'm not involved in reality shows, and that's pretty much what wins.
And having panned the Logies, you're probably not likely to be. But moving along.
Look, Graham Kennedy Award for Most Outstanding New Talent show. So I'm not going to go through all of this. From Redfern Now, a show I have not seen. Gold Logie for TV Week Hall of Fame for Brian Henderson. Well deserved, obviously.
Long time.
Most Outstanding Sports Coverage, the London Olympic Games for Foxtel. Look, if you can have a look here, I'm looking at the Screen Hub page here, which lists all of the winners. I didn't watch it. I've lost interest in the Logies some years ago, to be honest. If I worked in the industry more, maybe I'd be more interested
Phil,
in seeing if I get an
do
award.
you think you might get more interest out of the Logies if you were actually up for one?
Exactly. If
Okay.
I was on a show and when I was up for one, I'd be paying more attention.
Okay, so what do we have to do to get this show nominated for a Logie?
We've got to get on broadcast television, I think.
Right.
Which is not going to happen with this show, I don't think. But yeah, we've got to be making a broadcast TV show. But the highlight here, the reason I wanted to highlight this was that Screen Hub, and the article here, it says that most of these shows that won are independent. They're not coming from the stations themselves, the channels.
Well, and very interesting that Foxtel took the award for their sportscast because it's, of course, subscription television. Traditionally, the Logies have been entirely the domain of free-to-air channels.
Yeah, and you've got Blackfellows who took for Redfern Now, Fremantle Media for X Factor, The Devil's Dust. These are all independent production houses winning the Logies. So it looks like in-house production isn't doing very well at the moment. Anyway, actually the big local news, and I want to talk a bit about this, is the Liberal Party announced just the other day as we speak
yes.
their alternative to the NBN, their solution for the NBN.
And everybody I know who is looking at that is just rolling their eyes. Clearly, when one party wants to place some policies at the expense of the other, they have to come up with something completely different. But what is being proposed is a dumbing down of something that, whether or not it's expensive, has the capability to grow and serve the needs of the Australian community for a very long time.
Let me just lay it out for people. The current situation with the Labor Party in government is they're rolling out the National Broadband Network with NBN Co. in partnership with Telstra. And the idea is that it's fibre optic cable to your door, to the front door, to the premises. And that's what they're starting to roll out, and they've been doing it for a year or so, but it's got like another 10 years almost before they get all the way through. And it's a big, expensive project. It's a major infrastructure project on the scale of the railroads and the Snowy River scheme and this kind of thing. It's a major infrastructure thing.
But we've just been talking about how you can get 20 megabits or 10 megabits, 20 megabits, gigabits a second on some of these interfaces, and the fibre can do that now. The fibre is capable of delivering to your door hundreds or thousands of times that.
It's actually capable of delivering at its peak about 1 gigabit a second to your door through fibre optic. At the minimum, it'll be about 100 megabits a second, bare minimum. But they have measured at about 1 gigabit. What the Liberal proposal is, and this is coming from
Malcolm Turnbull.
Malcolm Turnbull, the Minister, who knows his stuff. Like he was one of the original people behind Aussie Mail. He knows this industry very well. And he's a good speaker, and he speaks very clearly on the point. What they're proposing is continue the fibre to the node, right?
Which means somewhere in the street.
Somewhere in your neighbourhood, in your local neighbourhood. And then we'll use the copper wires from that node out to each of the individual houses. So we'll use the existing copper network still, but fibre to the node. And they're saying this will be a lot cheaper, it'll be fast enough, and it'll get done sooner.
And I dispute that it will be fast enough. They're saying that by the time they roll this out in 5 or 10 years, they will be able to deliver 100 megabits to everybody's home. I've got 100 megabits at my home right now. I don't want to be happy with 100 megabits. I want 200 or 300 megabits, and I'd really love 50 megabits up.
Well, the upload speed is the big crusher, yes.
Absolutely.
What the Liberals are saying is, with their proposal, it'll cost about $30 billion, and they claim the Labor proposition is about $96 billion. That's if everything goes wrong. That's their worst case scenario, but that's what the Liberals are saying it'll cost for Labor. They say the Liberals say minimum of 25 megabits to your door, roughly around 50 for most people, 50 megabits, and that's fine for most people. You can stream 4 HD movies, you can be playing a game, you can have 4 people doing lots of stuff, and that'll eat up about 25 megabits. And that's true.
Yeah, it is.
It's true that for the average person now, that is acceptable. But in 6, 7, 10 years' time, will that be enough? And for our industry, it is already not enough.
And here's the other thing. This is why we get excited about this here, is because if you're like we are, you're producers of media, and you choose to work at home, or that's the business model that you're undertaking, you want a technology that's going to connect you at the speeds you need for production of media. You're not going to send a feature film up the line at 0.5 megabit a second. So we get very excited about this because what they're proposing is just throttling it back to something that's crap.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate here. I mean, the Liberals are saying, look, it's services for now, it's always upgradable in the future, and for the average consumer, for 90% of people out there, it's fine. If you need more, pay a bit extra, and we'll install the fibre for a few $1,000s to your premises, to your company, to your whatever you need, okay? And they're saying this will cost a lot less, won't take as long. I would say, look, that's very reasonable, that's very rational, it makes sense, but it actually doesn't think about the future.
No.
By the time it's installed, it's already out of date, I reckon.
And I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, the Labor plan, it's ambitious, it is expensive, but it's a major infrastructure they're trying to install here. And there have been problems and stumbling blocks and all the rest, but it's like, we need something like this. And the rest of the world is watching us, frankly. When they hear about what is proposed, and they're saying, oh, great, at least one country is really catching up. Because one thing Malcolm Turnbull did, he compared, he cited what's happening in America with Verizon and AT&T, and that their networks are roughly around what they're proposing. Yes, that's true. But what else is happening in America is Google have looked at this and said, this is not good enough. And they're rolling out Google Fiber. They've done it in Kansas City. They've just announced this week that they're going to do it in Texas. What's the city? I've forgotten now.
Name a city in Texas. San Antonio.
Remind me, what was the city, guys?
Dallas.
No.
Austin.
Austin, thank you very much. It was in Austin.
Somewhere.
They've announced that they're going to roll out Google Fiber to Austin in Texas. I think they mean the whole city, in stages.
Yeah.
And this is what we're doing, 1 gigabit fiber to the door. That's what Google are doing in America. Now, Google can do this because they can afford to do this, and basically they run the internet kind of, so it's infrastructure that helps their company ultimately.
Look, I think, Phil, you do your technology trials, and that's what Google's doing, and you prove that this works. But ultimately, if you're going to deliver a reasonable service, you're not going to deliver the service by matching exactly what the consumer has or needs right now. You deliver. It's the same as you don't produce a 2K movie by shooting in 2K. You produce the 2K movie by shooting in 4K. If you want a decent service, then the pipe to the door needs to be many, many times.
And even for consumers, if the capacity is there, it will be used. We don't have Netflix in this country yet. We don't have a lot of video streaming, but it will come.
Just wait until we do.
And when we're streaming HD, 4K, there's 4K TVs coming after all, and 4K content. In 5 to 10 years, that will be the new future.
So do you think maybe everybody knows what our position is on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. We want a broadband service that is actually broadband.
Basically, Liberals, good try. Malcolm Turnbull, I do respect you, and I think you've got a good head on your shoulders, but this is not going to work for the future of the country, in my opinion. Yeah?
And I agree.
Yeah. Okay. I want to finish with a couple of little things. We're still on news, frankly.
Oh, God.
Look, Roger Ebert, who was a film critic, very famous in America with Siskel and Ebert for their show. It was like the movie show in America. Now, I would not normally report on this because he's not that well known in Australia, and because he was a film critic.
Do you think not? Siskel and Ebert, I would think anybody in the community would know.
They might know the show, but there wasn't actually broadcast in this country.
No, it wasn't. But the whole concept of like 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down, which was their
He was
shtick.
a pioneer in that whole area.
Yeah.
But the reason I would like to signal his departing, and valet to Roger Ebert, is beyond being a film critic, he wrote for Russ Meyer Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, one of the classic schlock films ever made. So he had a career outside of just being a film critic, and as a film writer, if for nothing else, we should acknowledge his passing because he was behind Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Valet. Mr. Ebert.
2 thumbs up, Roger Ebert. Have you heard of Google Glass? Google Glasses?
I have not heard of Google Glasses.
Okay, because
Am I about to be surprised?
I keep up with the tech industry because that was my other hat for many, many years, following all of this. Google, again, they get their fingers into all sorts of things. They've been doing electric cars, and one of the other things they're doing is Google Glasses, which is glasses that have a little camera on them, and it'll project, it'll show, you can record what you see, and it'll project as a heads-up display all sorts of information. It's kind of in prototype form. There are people that are walking around with them. Sergey Brin has been walking around because he's from Google every time he gets a chance.
Well, he's half of Google, actually.
Yes. So he's been walking around with these. A fellow here has made a short film. It's the CG Bro is the channel name. A futuristic short film HD. This is a kind of sci-fi film of what the future might be like if we were all wearing Google glasses. And we won't play the whole thing, it's rather long, but just jump into the middle of this film and just have a look at a bit of it. Just jump ahead a bit, guys. So there we go. So imagine here he is on a date with this girl, and they're both checking each other out online as they talk with their hidden Google
Are you
glasses.
scared of jogging by yourself in the city?
Not really. Besides, I'm about to hit level 5.
So far, it
on
looks
that
like it's just a
master.
normal date.
Yeah, and they
Obviously, something surprising is going to
and
happen.
so he's looking at her and he brings up all of the stuff
What
that
is
she's
scary
just
though?
talked about,
On my last
and it's
trip,
telling you
my
look
sight
interested, and they've
crashed.
ordered their
So
meal
scary. I didn't
online
see anything. I couldn't find my way
directly.
home.
Sight doesn't crash.
And it's giving him hints.
He's got an app that's helping him how to conduct
Totally
this
lost. I
date,
didn't see
basically.
anything.
That doesn't happen since our last pack.
Do you
So
work
these
there?
are all suppositions of how this technology might be
Really?
used. Having a computer on your face, effectively.
I can see what's going to happen.
Some of this is simple.
People could actually stay home and they could just send the glasses
Yeah,
out on
read
the
about
date
your
because the
company in the
glasses will
news.
know what to do.
Well, that's been done. There was a movie called
guys get
Surrogates with
from
Bruce
stuff
Willis. That's
and
what the movie
manipulate
was
it,
about,
right?
basically. Anyway, watch the film because it ends real. It's a really nice climax to that, of where that date goes. That's on YouTube. It's called A Futuristic Short Film HD.
I can't imagine.
By,
So we've got to
by
go and
Sight
watch this,
Systems.
don't we? Yes.
Have a look at the film. Okay, that was a very big news segment, I know, but it's NAB. What we're going to go to now is we're going to jump into the third instalment of our cinematography series with Paul Howard. Hello, welcome back. This is part 3 of our cinematography course with Paul Howard. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Last time we left you, we just set up a tripod. There's our tripod.
Like this one?
Let's put a camera on it. Now, here at CIFA, we've got a Sony F3 camera, which is all fully rigged out. Put that on there if you could and take us through it.
Well, this is, as Phil was saying, so Sony F3, get a little matte box on it, follow focus unit.
Hang on, slow down. Where's the follow focus? What's that?
This is the follow focus unit right here.
And this on the front's the matte box, yep?
That's the matte box with a little French flag on it. So this matte box has 2 filter trays.
Okay, what are they for?
Well, you can put a whole different sorts of filters in there, and they rotate as well. And the ability to rotate means that you can put a polarizer in there.
Which is one type of filter,
Which
yeah?
is one type of filter that we would use, that you could use. This particular camera has an inbuilt ND, but if you were using one-stop NDs like ND3, 6 or 9, you'd pop them in there. There's a whole bunch of filters you could use. Basically, the point of it is this stops the light, unwanted light, from going down the lens. And if you don't,
And you avoid lens flares with
you
that
can
kind
avoid
of thing, yeah?
lens flares with that as well. So on here we have a 35mm prime lens, and to keep that in focus.
Now, sorry, what's a prime lens?
A prime lens is a fixed focal length lens, as opposed to a zoom lens, which is multiple lenses, which you can change in shot to magnify an image, so you can zoom in or zoom out. But with a prime lens, you've just got one fixed focal length, and you learn a lot more about perspective that way, just using that. For those of you who've used DSLRs, you'd be right across that. But
We'll talk more about lenses a little bit later in a later tutorial, okay?
So to keep that in focus, we've got a focus wheel on the side there, which you can mark up so that when you're doing focus pulls, you know where to pull the focus.
So we've got some, like there's a red
from.
and some black marks on there. You just line them up with that black bit there.
With the witness mark at the top there, yeah. Yeah, and that keeps it in focus. This particular camera has a Super 35 chip in it, so it has a shallower depth of field, and we'll talk about depth of field a bit later on. But that's basically the camera. And just to give you an example I should say, basically, that's a typical kind of camera for this type of tripod. When we were talking before about counterbalancing and drag and that sort of thing, you can see with a camera on it, it's relatively, it's very important to have that counterbalance set. If we're set at 2, the camera will not quite come back to center, okay? What it does do is if the camera is overbalancing, it won't go all the way. If you turn your counterbalance up to 4 with this particular camera, it'll bounce away like crazy. It's got no tension on it, so it's just going to be able to do that. But if you're trying to tilt from, say, looking down to looking up, you'll be fighting against that because that counterbalance is really strong. That spring in there is really, really pulling it tight. So for a camera like this, you might be able to go to 3. Once you tighten up the tilt a little bit, put a bit of tension on that, on both the pan and the tilt, lovely. And the camera's not going to overbalance. It'll always pretty much come back to center.
Okay. And every camera's a bit different, depending on the weight of the lens, whatever's on the front of it.
Yeah.
If you've got hard drives or other monitoring things on the back of it, all that kind of stuff.
That's
Whatever,
right, yeah.
all the attachments that might go on a modern camera.
Extra monitors, all sorts, yeah, depending on the sort of camera. The head is very important, very integral to keeping it nice and steady and having a smooth day.
Right. So that's an overview of basically what every camera pretty much has, yeah?
Yeah.
In generally speaking.
Yeah, generally speaking. There are just like variations on that. Some bigger bits and some have smaller bits.
We'll get more into what those bits are next time around. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you, Phil.
See you at the next tutorial. There we go. That was our third installment with Paul Howard on cinematography. More of those to come. What I would like to do now, just really quickly, as you know, we are filming this show at CIFA, Sydney Institute Film Academy. It's a college, it's a film school. And I wanted to, for the sake of the people out there, some of the DVDs and Blu-rays that I use as a teaching resource here, some recommendations. If you're interested in filmmaking, these are some of the things that I recommend you have a look at, okay? They're not necessarily movies. Most of these are documentaries, in fact. And most of these are hard to find, okay? This first one, it's an old BBC masterclass with Michael Caine, acting in film.
Is this before he was famous?
No, this is while he was famous. This was done in like the 80s, okay? And he talks about his early films and educating Rita. And he actually takes a group of acting students really through the nitty-gritty of acting for camera. Really bare bones, basic, important stuff, great essential stuff. It's great if you want to be an acting student. It's great for directors as well. Learning how to act and how to shoot actors for camera, the continuity, all that kind of stuff. It's really good. It's hard to find though, that one. For writers, if you know anything about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey and all that kind of stuff, The Power of Myth. It's a documentary series of interviews with Joseph Campbell, who wrote the book. So if you can get a hold of the book, read the book. But this is a documentary with the man himself about the book and about all of his thoughts and philosophies on the hero's journey, because he looked at the mythologies throughout the ages and how they all fundamentally are the same kind of story. And this is the man that George Lucas based his Star Wars movies on. He followed those points, and that's what made Star Wars the way it was.
This one looked rather interesting. Not Quite Hollywood, an Aussie film packed full of boobs, pubes and kung fu.
Have you heard of it?
No, but it's gone on here. It says Quentin Tarantino, Dennis Hopper, Barry Humphries and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is an awesome documentary about all of the genre films from the 1970s in Australia. The sex farces like Alvin Purple, the action
Graham
films.
Blundell is on the front.
Exactly. In fact, we have an interview with David Hannay, which we're going to be presenting in this show very soon. And David Hannay is featured in this because he made Stone and The Man from Hong Kong, which are part of this generation of filmmaking. Really awesome documentary on that period. The most famous film from this, of course, is Mad Max and those, but there's lots of other films in that period. And it's a part of Australian culture that we tend to frown upon. But as you see, Quentin Tarantino and other people overseas, they loved Mad Max, they loved all of these films. That's what, it's not Picnic at Hanging Rock or Brilliant Career. These are the films that put Australia on the map internationally, frankly. The
Stuntman. So this is a movie about a stuntman.
Yes. You not heard of this one?
I have not heard of this.
This is an awesome film. Richard Rush, the director, Peter O'Toole, the star. It's about Peter O'Toole playing a director trying to get a movie made. And he hires this guy as a stuntman who's not really a stuntman, he's an ex-Vietnam vet, and he's hiding from the law. It's a really nice insight into how they make the film and how stunt people in particular
So it's like
work.
film within film stuff.
Yeah, this is before Burt Reynolds was doing all his stuff with Hooper and those sort of stunt films. This came before that. And in particular I wanted to show this because there's an awesome documentary that comes with this about the making of the film. And Richard Rush, the director, gives you all the background on how they financed the film, how they got it up and running, location scouting, all the production behind the scenes. Really good documentary.
Sounds like must-view stuff for anybody who wants to be a producer.
Absolutely, really well done. Most docos and commentary tracks don't go into that kind of detail.
Let's see, side by side, James Cameron, George Lucas, David Lynch. There are names.
This is a new one. This has just come out. It was featured at the Tribeca Film Festival last year. Keanu Reeves is behind this, in fact. Watch this now if you're into digital cinematography. This talks to all of these directors and cinematographers about the transition from film to digital cameras, and they talk about the Reds and the Ariel X's, those kinds of cameras, and what this means, not just the cameras, but also the post-workflow and how we've gone digital in filmmaking. This talks about that process, and there are some people on here that bemoan the loss of film, and they would rather work on film and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Really good doco about going digital in filmmaking.
Now, I really like this one, F for Fake. So this goes back to an Orson Welles film, and this looks like it's a double set. And it says, yes, the film has been digitally remastered. So this is a completely cleaned up version of the film, and then a whole heap of supplements on the second disc.
An awesome package, really hard to find. I mean, this film was lost for ages. Orson Welles, most of what he's done has been sort of lost and squandered, frankly, since Citizen Kane. This is actually a documentary about the creative process. And the beautiful part of it is he says early on in the thing, halfway through this film, I'm going to start lying to you. And then he does it and you don't notice. And you just follow that train of thought and it becomes an outrageous documentary. I've never seen a doco quite like it. It's a really great doco. And he talks about his own career in that, but he talks about the creative process generally. And he's trying to establish what is fake. You know, F for fake. Is he a fake? Great doco.
Time for one more. Visions of Light, the art of cinematography.
This is a one I love showing my classes when I do cinematography. It's a really good 90-minute documentary on cinematography. We looked at these side by side for the modern stuff. This shows you the classic all through the history of cinema, up to about the 90s. Okay, Visions of Light. I do want to show one more very, very quickly. I know we're running out of time. This is a movie. Have you heard of this?
Living
in Oblivion. Steve Buscemi, Catherine Keener. This is an indie film. It's about a filmmaker trying to make his film and everything goes wrong. If you want to learn what not to do, watch this film. And don't do what happens on this. It's awesome. It's very funny as well. All right.
Living in Oblivion.
Living in Oblivion. That's just a few selections of things to whet your appetite for filmmaking and learning the process there. But before we wrap up, we do have a Pick My Brain question. Pick my brain. And we have a video question. Let's roll that.
Now, when I'm doing a green screen shoot in a large studio, now the specific camera to use, will a Scarlet X be good, will a Red be good, or will I have to get one specifically made as they did in The Phantom Menace?
For doing a green screen shoot. See, I would have thought that even before you worry about what sort of camera you're going to use, the most important thing in doing a green screen, or a blue screen, would be get the lighting right so you don't have to deal with spill.
Yes. So you've got to light it right, you know, light the background and the foreground quite separately so you've got a nice separation with that. But in terms of what camera to use, you mentioned Phantom Menace. George Lucas and Sony worked together to develop what became the Cine Ultra range for Phantom Menace. As a digital camera to shoot that. It wasn't really designed especially for green screen, it was designed because he wanted to shoot digital, and most of that film was green screen. Look, all the ones you mentioned, the Epic, the Scarlet, it doesn't matter. The main important thing with the camera that you shoot green or blue screen with is the more data it can handle, the sample rate, preferably 422 or 444, but you know, preferably not a standard def 420 kind of thing. Yeah. But the better the sample rate, the better the data. The more data it contains, the easier you'll be able to key that green out and the more you'll be able to do with it in post.
And that's the fundamental thing. To do a decent key, you need really clean, sharp, hard edges, and that means resolution. Yeah. That's why 444 or 422, but not 420.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, we're talking HD these days. Don't bother with standard def. But whether it's HD, 4K, or up to 6K or more these days, it really comes down to how, as you say, how well you light it. If it's not well lit, it's still going to be a problem.
And don't forget, people got really good keys back in the days of doing composite video and television. It's not impossible to get a good key and get rid of the background and have a good outline, but resolution helps.
And when your key doesn't work, you go to things like the new Adobe After Effects rotoscoping tools. You rotoscope it out, and some of the new tools there are making that a lot easier to do. I've had to do that where I haven't had a key, and I've wanted to rotoscope and change the backgrounds. Rotoscoping is a nightmare. All right, that is our show for today. You got anything to finish up with, John?
Look, one quick thing. So if you're watching this and it's before April the 30th, Afters runs a really great series. In fact, Afters runs a whole lot of good series of things you can go to that cost you absolutely nothing, and they're there for the industry. There's one that Chris McKeith runs. He's the head of sound at Afters, and he runs it on the last Thursday. It's either the fourth Thursday or the last Thursday of the month. The one that's coming up, and it's part of what he calls the Sound Bites series, and it's about audio workflow. So you were talking about workflow before. Workflow is so important. This is going to be a discussion about workflow in the entire acquisition and post-production process, and that's at the film school. Generally starts at 6:30. On the last Thursday of the month.
So what's the date for that one?
The 30th.
So Australian Film and Television Radio School at Randwick in Sydney. On the, what was the date? Sorry.
The 30th.
On the 30th. If you see this before then, get along if you can. That's it from us. If you need to contact us, reach us at veronica@agirlandagun.tv, and you should see a lower third that will tell you that, hopefully, coming up soon. You can tweet us at @agirlandagun. And you can visit our YouTube page currently, which is A Girl and a Gun podcast. But that's all from us, and that is a wrap.